everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through a pretty comprehensive start from scratch tutorial on downloading QGIS, loading data, doing some visualizations, basic navigation, some basic data manipulations, and then review some key concepts in GIS around projections and how to manage them in the software. So, without further ado, let's start. I've downloaded QGIS from the website. You can download it for whatever operating system is on your machine from qgis.org. You want the LTR, the long-term version, means it is stable and bug-free. Here are all the other platforms. I'm on a Mac right now, but your screens should be pretty similar, and everything will be pretty similar through this whole video. So I've gone ahead and downloaded it and dragged and dropped it into my applications. It takes a minute. It's kind of a big file, 2.9 gigabytes. So I'm just gonna open it up right here and skip over that step, but I will flag that sometimes it throws a little security warning the first time you open it in Mac. So there's some instructions right here for how to bypass it, depending on the operating system on your Mac. So I had to do this little navigate to system settings, then privacy and security, and then click open anyway when it said that QGIS was blocked. And you only have to do it once, and then you're basically good to go. So with that, we've got QGIS open, and let's just take a quick little tour of what we're looking at here. Well, you've got your regular menu at the top, kind of similar to any program: project, edit, view, layer settings, etc. You've got a bunch of these buttons up here. We'll see what they do. You can mouse over anything and it will kind of give you a little description. You've got your browser window. So this is essentially where you're going to load data from. These are the files and folders on your computer. So if you expand this folder by clicking on the little arrow pointing to the right, you'll see that this is essentially the same folder structure as is on my Mac. And so I can navigate to some files that I've downloaded right here, and I can find some GIS data. And if you're looking for some data to play around with, I suggest you go to Canvas or a link that will accompany this tutorial and just download the file called sprdata.zip. spr_data.zip. It's in the Canvas, and I will link it in the description of this video. So there you go. I have downloaded this sprdata.zip file into my downloads folder, and I have unzipped it. Now that means essentially a zip file are several files bundled together into one, and you need to unpack it or uncompress it in order to view each of those individual files. So what you want to do is right click on the zip file and click something like extract or extract all or expand or uncompress, depending on your operating system. So mine says extract, and I can do that. And essentially what it will do is make a folder with the same name as that zip file that you can then expand, and you will see a bunch of different files all ending with some geospatial extensions like GPKG or GeoJSON or so on. So go ahead and in QGIS navigate to the folder on your computer where you extracted those files. And you may need to click this little refresh button to get it to update if you extracted it after you opened QGIS. So I'm going to go into the folder that we just extracted right here, SPR data 3, because I've already got a few other ones with the same name, and I can see all of these files ending in .geojson, and they show up right here in my browser's panel, and I can load them into QGIS by just dragging and dropping down from the browser into the layers panel. So I've just grabbed the first one called boundary, and I've dragged and dropped it, and there you go. It pops up on the map. Now you can drag and drop all of these individually, and each is a different layer showing a different thing. Some are points, some are lines, and some are polygons, and we'll learn more about that soon. Now you can select multiple layers easily by highlighting one, holding Shift, and then clicking another layer, and you will select everything in between your clicks when you hold Shift after the first click. And you can drag and drop those down just the same into the layers panel. So let's get all of those down there. And you might get some messages saying, okay, we're going to add a bunch of these layers, and you can just say, okay, add layers. Now we've got a bunch of stuff on our map. Great. And you can see in our layers panel here that each layer has a different name, and it's got a little icon next to it denoting whether it's a point, a line, or a polygon. Right? The little dots mean they're points, the lines mean they're lines, and the squares mean they're polygons. We can change the order of all of these layers by dragging and dropping them one on top of the other. So if I drag the soil layer to the top, which is shown as a gray polygon, there you go. There it is. So these are all of our layers. Now let's take a little tour around QGIS, okay? So here we already looked at our browser window and our layers window. At the bottom down here, you can see a little box that says coordinates. Coordinate. It's a little small, but there it is. And those give you the coordinates of the cursor as you move it around the map. And they're, in latitude, longitude coordinates, since that's what we're using for our map right now. And I'll show you how to change that in a little bit. For the scale, you can see it's set right here. It kind of automatically sets depending on the scale of your data, but you can alter that too. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, and you can change the scale as you want. Magnifier, kind of the same thing. It's kind of just a zoom in and a zoom out tool. You can also rotate and so on. Now down here, this little box, it's a little hard to see, but this is the coordinate system for your project. And if you click it, you will see that you can search for whatever kind of coordinate system that you want. And we'll get more into this later, but suffice it to say for right now that it's a very important part of GIS. So that's the little tour. One more thing that I want to highlight, and that's this processing toolbox right here. And this is going to be your friend for GIS because you are going to be able to find whatever you need to do in terms of geospatial operations right here. And you can get this back if it's missing from your QGIS window by right-clicking on any of the white space and then just selecting the Processing Toolbox panel. And there it is. You can also go to View, Panels, Processing Toolbox panel, and you can get it back right here. So there are a few more things that I want to quickly highlight. All of what can be achieved via the Processing Toolbox is also available up here in these essentially two menu options, Vector and Raster. And they kind of subdivide all of the different tools based on different themes. So if you take a look around there, you'll get a sense of all that can be done, and there's little handy icons next to them to kind of give you a sense of what they do. And of course, you can Google these terms, or you can look at the QGIS documentation in order to figure out what they mean. So that is the quick tour around QGIS. And in a second here, we're going to get to some basic visualization and other handy tools that we can use to make good maps and do good analysis. Right, we are back and we are going to demo some cool QGIS functionality, starting with putting down base maps of a few different kinds. So this relies on a third-party tool called Quick Map Services. And one of the cool parts about QGIS is the open source ecosystem of tools that you can access from within the user interface. You just go up here to plugins, manage and install plugins, and you should see a window that looks like this. And if you explore this, you can see all of the available plugins that can support your GIS analysis, and there's lots of them. The one that we want is called Quick Map Services. So just type in Quick Map, no space, select the plugin that looks like this, and click install. It will take a second to download. You will get a little message that says plugin installed successfully, and then you can close out of the plugins window. Now, to view Quick Map Services, you should see a little globe icon added to your toolbar called Search QMS. It's got a little magnifying glass and a globe. I believe also if you go to Web up here on the top menu and then Quick Map Services, you can find Search QMS, and that's what we want. So go ahead and select Search QMS, and you should see this window pop open. It says Search QMS, and we want to search for satellite because we're going to put down a satellite base map of our study area to make this look a little better and give it some more context. And so if I search satellite and give it a second, you see all of these satellite data providers pop up. And there's a few that I like the best. I think probably Esri, Bing, and Google are some of the best ones. You can pick whatever you like, but if you go ahead and click Add, then you should see a base map pop up in your Layers panel, and you should see some nice satellite imagery to support the other data that we have in the project. So go ahead and you can experiment with a couple of these. They all look a little bit different. They are acquired at different times and are composited in different ways to filter things like cloud cover and so on. So if you look at a few different ones, they might look a little different, but definitely aesthetically pleasing. So that is base maps. Very nice, helpful tool. We can X out of Search QMS if we've got our preferred base map. Reminder that we can always get it back from Web Quick Map Services or just by clicking this little globe icon with the search magnifying glass right there. Now let's go over some map controls. So we have our data in our project and we can move the map around just by selecting this hand and clicking and dragging. This is called panning. We can zoom in and out if you are on a computer with a mouse by pulling and pushing the scrolly wheel in between the two buttons in and out. Or if you're on a laptop, you can put two fingers on the trackpad and pull up or down to zoom in and out respectively. So play around with that. You can also use these controls up here to zoom in and zoom out. Another handy control let's say I'm zoomed really far out. I can see like all of North America right now. And I know I've got some data somewhere, but I don't know where it is. And I want to get back to wherever it is. I can use this little button right here, zoom full. And if I click that, it will take me to the extent of all of my layers in the project. So those are some map controls on top of the basic QGIS layout. Now we are going to talk briefly about visualization and how we can style some of these map layers to be much more aesthetically pleasing and much more rich in information content. So recall that we can essentially turn on or off any layer by checking on or off the checkbox in the layers panel. So I'm just going to turn off a few layers to make this a little more digestible. And I think why don't we just isolate this soil layer for right now and experiment with some visualizations. Well, we can see that the soil layer is composed of many polygons. And I'm just going to zoom into some of them. And if we want to know more about these polygons, we can right-click on the soil layer or control-click if you're on a laptop. Go to Properties. And then here in Symbology, we can visualize different attributes of this layer. So what do I mean when I say attributes? First, let's X out of the symbology really quick. Right click on the soil layer and click Open Attribute Table. If I do that, I can see essentially a data table, like an Excel spreadsheet or one of our regular comma-separated value files, that corresponds to our soils layer. Now, I want you to notice that each row in this attribute table corresponds to a shape in the soils layer. And we just got a little message about our base map, but not an issue. So as I am clicking on the number, the row number in the attribute table of the soils layer, we're seeing each different soil type or soil polygon get highlighted. So there you go. So those are selecting attributes. And if you look at the top of our data table right here, you can see that we have 119 total polygons. And some of these attributes, like let's look through them. What are they? They appear to be some lookup keys, some values like depth, A depth, maybe that's the A horizon depth, B horizon depth, texture, maybe a code for texture, slope min, slope max, the min and max slope maybe found in that area, name of the soil, hydro group, S_S, I'm not really sure what that is. Maybe we want to look at some metadata to figure it out. K factor, and then we've got some geometric fields. So we have a lot of data associated with these soil polygons, right? For each polygon, we know all of these column attributes. We know the depth, the AB depth, the texture, the slope min and the slope max, and the name, hydro group, and the K factor, etc. So how can we visualize some of those attributes on a map? Well, keep in mind there are essentially two different types of data here. There are some numerical data, like slope min and slope max, and there are some alphanumeric or categorical data, like soil name, hydro group, texture, etc. So if we want to visualize those, and note that I still have a little yellow polygon here, which means I have a selected feature in this row, and I can deselect that using this button right here. It says deselect all features. It's like 2 yellow sticky notes and a red do not enter sign. I'll click that really quick. But if I want to visualize some of those attributes, I can right click on the layer, select properties, make sure that I've scrolled down and selected symbology, third from the top here. And let's say I want to show one of those categorical data types like hydro group. I can select categorized from this top drop-down menu right here. It's usually defaulted to single symbol, and that's essentially what we're looking at, the gray polygons. And if we wanted to change that gray, we could, right? If we wanted to make it, say, blue, we could select blue from the colors and click apply, and boom, our layer became blue. But if we want to do a little more interesting visualization, maybe we want to display some of those categorical columns for each polygon. So you could go to categorized here, and then from the value menu, select any of those variables in the attribute table. So why don't we pick the hydro group value? So we select that from value. Don't forget to click classify. You will see here a list of all of the values, kind of like what will go on your legend. And then if you click apply, you'll see your layer update. So there you go. Those are the hydro groups. I'm not exactly sure what those mean, but there are some categories associated with our data. What if we wanted to visualize a numerical variable, right? Instead of a categorical variable? Well, to do that, instead of categorized from the top drop-down menu, we select graduated. And QGIS is smart enough to only give us options to select the numerical columns, like slope min, slope max, k-factor, depth, a-depth, and so on. So let's say we want the b-depth variable, which is the, I'm assuming, the depth to the B horizon of soil. Well, we can select that from the value field, click classify, and then hit apply. And your map will update to show for each polygon the depth value in the attribute table that corresponds to the B depth field. So yes, and the color ranges are given here. You see we have two classes essentially showing the same thing. Let's say I want to edit some of these values. Well, I can edit them right here in the legend. So maybe I want to make the first color white 0 to 5. The second color, kind of this pink, 5 to 10. Can make the third color 10 to 15. 15 to, maybe we'll make this 15 to 30, and then 30 to 60. And if we click apply, or will that just change the legend? We can actually do that if we alter the values column here. So I've just edited the legend, oops, instead of the values. But if we want to go ahead and actually update the values, let's go ahead and do that. So 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 30, and then 30 to 60. And now, if we click apply, you'll see that these changed. They didn't change too much, but they did change. And you know, we can visualize essentially any numerical field. So let's try out k-factor and click classify again. We can pick a different color ramp if we want. And if we click apply, you'll see that get applied to all of these polygons. And our new value ranges are shown in the legend panel under the layer that we're modifying. So I encourage you to play around with these visualizations and different ways of visualizing both numerical and categorical data and getting pretty comfortable with these because they're pretty useful and commonly applied in lots of the things that we're going to do this quarter. So that is kind of editing the symbology of, mostly we focused on polygons, but you can also edit points and lines just the same. So I've now dragged the water points layer on top of our soil layer that we edited. And let's say I want to make this a little more visually appealing. I could go into properties. I could select a different marker. If I drop down this little menu here and go to all symbols, it gives me a bigger range. And again, I can use some of the fields in the attribute table to make a more rich and compelling visualization. So for instance, let's see what's in there that we can visualize. There's a few different things. H2O resource, we got a date, some comments, an ID, and a condition field. So why don't we try this H2O resource column as a numerical attribute? Already there, basically. Let's do graduated. Click apply, and boom, there you have essentially each color, red through white, corresponding to whatever the values are in this H2O resource column. It's probably like how much water that point yields. And of course, if we want to make these points bigger and more visible, we can do that in properties. You can select right here where it says symbol, click on the marker, and then just change the size. So maybe we want to make this a 10. All right, click apply, and there we go. Some bigger symbols. And of course, there's so much like more styling that you can do. You can make these transparent. So if I want to make them 50% transparent, I can open layer rendering and change the opacity. And yeah, let's say I want to change, instead of making the colors correspond to the values, what if I want to make the size of the circle correspond to each of the values? So I can totally do that. And instead of color and method, I just select size, click apply, and there you go. Each circle is now sized corresponding to the value in the H2O resource column. So very cool, right? Like you can make a lot of very rich visualizations like this. If we want to make the biggest circles bigger, you can change this size from category, right? If I change that to 25, the big ones will get bigger. And if I change the minimum bound, right, the small ones will get bigger. But I think this is a reasonably nice way of visualizing this for now. So keep in mind, you can make, graduated sizes, graduated colors, many different style options here. So, okay, that is a quick reminder on some of the visualization techniques, particularly for these vector layers that we've been working with. Now, I want to show you a few more useful tools. Right here, this box with it looks almost like a piano, but I think it's a ruler. If you hover over it, it says measure line. Click on that, and you'll see this box pop up. And it says measure. Pretty intuitive what it's doing. And this does exactly what you think it does. It lets you measure line distances. And you can essentially initiate this by clicking on the map. And each time you click, you get a new line segment length, and you have the coordinates for each point that you click on the map. And you'll notice that each time I click, a new coordinate pair gets added. Now we're in meters here, but you can also go into feet. You can move this to inches, whatever unit you want, really. Doesn't really matter. So there's measuring lines, but we can also measure other things, right? We can measure areas. So if we, from the same drop down right next to the measure line tool, select measure area, and now we start clicking, you'll see that we make polygons instead of lines automatically. And we can end one of these polygons with a right click or a control click. I believe it's a control click. I actually can't figure out how to end it. Oh, it is a control click. So a control click ends at the last time that you clicked to form a polygon, and there's your value in square meters. And of course, you can make this acres, you can make this square miles, any square units that you want. So let me just do that one more time for good measure. We need more than 2 points to make a polygon, and there you go in square miles. There's our polygon. And if I want to end it at that last point, I can click Control and click. And there you go, 0.034 square miles. So pretty useful if you're just trying to get a ballpark estimate of how big an area is. Of course, you might want to calculate the area of a polygon, and we can totally do that, probably in a future lecture. So for now, I want to show a couple more things. I want to show you how. So in this, let's focus on our SPR soil layer for a moment. In this soil layer, and I'm going to right click it and open the attribute table, I saw a bunch of different types of soil names, right? I've clicked on the top column header in the attribute table, and you can sort them alphabetically if you do that. And if you click it again, it will sort descending, Z to A. So you can see that we have a bunch of different soil names in this data set. We've got Watsonville something, Watsonville probably loam. Let me see if I can expand that. Watsonville loam, Tierra Watsonville complex, Tierra Watsonville complex, and so on. What if we just wanted to select the features or the polygons in our soils layer that just corresponded to one of those loam types? For instance, why don't we take this Soquel loam, S-O-Q-U-E-L loam. Well, we can use the very handy tool called Select Features by Attribute. Now, I'm going to X out of the attribute table, and I'm going to click the Select Features by Value button right here. And it's actually called Select Features by Value, not Attribute. My mistake. But if you click that button, notice that it will pop up a form, and it's based on the layer that I have selected in the layers table. So if I have SPR soil selected and I click this button, these options will correspond to the column headers in SPR soil. Similarly, if I do this for land use, these are now the column headers in SPR land use. But let's say I want to select that Soquel loam. I can click this Select Features by Value button. I can scroll down to the soil name field, and I can just start typing Soquel loam, and it pops right up. And I can select it from the menu, and then I can do a couple of things. I can click Flash Features, and that shows me on the map in red which features have a soil name of Soquel loam. I can also select these features, which has, if you see here, highlighted them in yellow. And then from this selection, I can do a few different things. Firstly, when these features are selected, and I open the attribute table by right-clicking the SPR soil layer and selecting Open Attribute Table, you will see that these layers are automatically highlighted, right? I've selected them using the Select Features by Value tool, and they're selected in my attribute table. Let's say I want to deselect them. Well, this button right here allows you to do that. It's called Deselect Features from All Layers, and I can deselect them easily. What if I want to just select some layers on the basis of where they are? Well, I can use this tool right here, Select Features by Area or Single Click. And if I click it and then draw a little box, any polygon that overlaps with the box that I draw gets selected. And you can try this out a few times. This also works if you just click on a single polygon, you will select it. So this is Select Features by Area or Single Click. So why would I want to select features? Well, you can do a few pretty useful things. Let's say I wanted to just isolate those Soquel loams. Well, I'm going to open up the Select Features dialog tool right here, Select Features by Value. I'm going to type in Soquel loam into the soil name field, click Select Features, and QGIS tells me right here 12 matching features selected. Great. Now I'm going to make a new layer from those selected features, and I'm going to add it to the Layers panel. So you right-click on the layer, SPR soil, click Export, and then Save Selected Features As. And this dialog window pops open, and it's saying Save Vector Layer As. And this is exactly what we want. We want to save this layer. You need to save it to somewhere on your computer where you are allowed to save files. And if you're on your laptop, you can probably save files anywhere. But if you're on a computer managed by Cal Poly or anyone, you might not be able to save them anywhere. And even if you're on a laptop, you might not be able to save files to your root directory. So what you need to do is essentially click these 3 dots next to the file name box and pick a location on your computer where you want to store these files. So I'm going to save to my desktop, and I'm just going to call this Soquel. All right. You will see the full path of that file location gets populated into the file name, and I can pick a format. GeoPackage is just fine. There's some other options here. We don't really need to worry about them for now. Click OK. And a new layer called Soquel got added to my layers panel. And if I unclick the SPR soil layer, you see that I've isolated the Soquel soil types from the SPR soil as a new layer. And indeed, if I open my File Explorer and go to the desktop, I can see my Soquel.gpkg file right here. So we can confirm, and furthermore, we've got a little confirmation message right here that our data was exported correctly. So that is great. We have successfully filtered some data on the basis of a column value. And I want to show you another useful tool that is this right here, the Identify Features tool. Now, this thing basically lets you get more information about whatever polygon or feature or any shape that you click on. The trick is you have to have the layer that you want to inspect selected from the layers panel. So let's say I want to know some more info about this big ol' soil polygon right here. Right? We're colorizing some attribute from it. I think it was the K factor. But I want to know like what soil type it is or some other info about it. So I've got the SPR soil layer selected in my layers panel. I can click on Identify Features. And you see this window pops up called Identify Results. And if I click now on a polygon, here are all of the data values with all of the column headers in the SPR soil layer. So this is the Ben Lomond Catelli Sur complex soil name. It's got an A depth of 19, a B depth of 30, and all of these other parameters, K factor of 0.17, and so on. And we can click on any polygon in this layer and get some more information about it. So pretty handy. And let's go ahead and deselect some of those features. Deselect features from all. That's not working for some reason, but that's fine. Not a worry. So, yeah, the Identify tool. And a reminder, it really corresponds to the layer that you have selected. So even though I have SPR land use on top here, I have SPR soil selected, and so the polygons being highlighted correspond to the SPR soil layer and not the SPR land use layer because of the order of my layers, right? And so if I drag SPR soil on top of land use, you can see that these become identified as expected. And indeed, the selected features issue seems to have resolved itself. So that is a pretty quick demo on map navigation, QGIS format, like the menus, the controls, the different basic tools that we can use to navigate. We talked about the Identify Features tool, very useful to learn more info about the attributes that a feature might have. You can also click and drag to select multiples there. Select Features, which lets you create new layers by geographically clicking and selecting different features, different polygons in a layer. There's also Select Features by value, where you can filter on the basis of different attributes. And keep in mind here, let's just demo this really quick. In addition to categorical attributes, you can filter for numerical attributes. So let's say we want a K factor greater than 0.15. I can type that in, and then I can change this little equal to next to it to greater than. And then if I click Flash Features, those are all the ones with a K factor greater than 0.15. What if I change this to 0.45? and flash again. No matching features found, so maybe I need to go lower. How about 2.5? Some more. 3.5. No matching features. How about 0.3? Now I'm interested in this k-factor thing. Anyway, you can see here, you can filter these in, very sophisticated ways. So I can select anything that matches a soil name. I can select anything greater than or less than a certain value in k-factor. I can select basically anything I want from these. So that is QGIS basics, and I hope you enjoyed that little tour.